Denver7 goes 360. I'm Shanna Duffy, and for the next 30 minutes, we're going to look at some of the more memorable stories we have given our 360 treatment to. Stories where there's not always one or two or even three sides, like the giant blue horse with the glowing red eyes at DIA. Now, for some reason, not everyone seems to think that's the most welcoming sight at our airport. Denver7's Tom Mustin goes 360 on the Blue Mustang.
St. Louis has its famous Gateway Arch. New York, the Statue of Liberty. Here in the Mile High City,
it's kind of creepy.
We have this guy, a 32-foot...
I call it the devil horse.
...known simply as Mustang.
It's like just amazing that when you see this Bronco sitting out there, you know you like a Bronco country.
Maybe so, but we're just getting started. As you just heard, many feel this electric blue Mustang is way too demonic. Others say he's as cool as the big blue bear and perfect for Colorado. Yet another opinion is he's not art and a waste of taxpayer money. Other questions: is he cursed? Is he here to stay? Is he the work of an undercover Raiders fan? So how did this 9,000-pound electric blue Mustang with glowing red eyes end up on Pena Boulevard? Let's go on a 360 gallop to find some answers. First, a little background. In 1993, sculptor Luis Jimenez was commissioned to create a public art project for DIA.
He's got work in the Met, in the Smithsonian. He's one of the leaders in contemporary sculpture.
DIA spokesperson Emily Williams says Jimenez created the Mustang to capture Denver's pioneering Western spirit. But what's with those Damien eyes?
The artist fashioned those eyes as a tribute to his father, who owned a neon shop in New Mexico.
The eyes are actually LED, but any further insight is shrouded in mystery. Jimenez had a major problem with deadlines as his deed neared completion in 2006. 13 years late, and now at a cost of $650,000, tragedy struck. A large chunk of the pony broke loose and crushed the artist to death.
Because of this tragic accident that some people believe that Mustang might be cursed, he has locally the nickname Lucifer.
Lucifer was finally installed 2 years later to almost universal scorn. A Facebook group formed calling for his removal.
But that's good art, right? The art is meant to spark a conversation.
Columbus visitor Kaylee Warwick
Extremely strange.
still doesn't get it.
Every time we come here, its eyes glow red. It's really, really creepy.
Others, like Deb Lundberg,
an attention getter,
are more forgiving.
The red eyes are kind of a eye catcher, so.
It's also anatomically correct.
Yeah, it is. Which, I guess that's okay.
Remember, Denver is also home to these guys, and of course, the big blue bear. We're used to interesting artwork, but somehow this horse looked like a bizarro world version of our beloved Broncos mascot.
It's just weird.
What do you think? On Facebook, Jesse Lynch commented, "He can ride off into the sunset, creeps my girls out every time we drive past him." John chimed in, "I'm torn. He's awesome, but scary." Then there's Lucifer's price tag, which is a common complaint. In reality, though, Lucifer was funded by the airport's enterprise fund and not taxpayer dollars. So, is Lucifer art? Ginger White with Denver Parks and Venues says beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
I love that we're bold enough as a city to put something out there that, maybe not everyone loves, and I think that says a lot about who we are.
Meanwhile, time has healed old wounds. The city says after a decade, calls to remove Mustang have virtually disappeared, and he's earned his place among other quirky Denver landmarks. Many people say from a distance Mustang looks scary or maybe even a little possessed. But when you get up close, yeah, he's still pretty creepy. So what's next for the Blue Stallion? Love him or hate him, it appears he's here to stay. And like a galloping phoenix rising from the ashes, this demonic charger looms over our fair city, proudly displaying a decade of battle scars, even winning over skeptics like Kaylee Warwick. Sort of.
Even though I do think it's creepy, I think now when I come here, I expect to see it. So there's that.
Giddy up. Tom Mustin, Denver7.
Now, it seems everyone has a comment about Lucifer here. Some people find those glaring red eyes a little creepy. Others say it's just eye-catching. Khalid says, "I love it. It's very unique to Denver." He says the story behind it is interesting and it adds something very special. Nancy and Gary Johnson disagree. They say, quote, "We didn't like it when it was first put up and we still don't like it. would like to see it come down and replaced with something more pleasing, they say. Linda emailed us. She said maybe they should have relocated the troll from Breckenridge next to the horse. If you have an opinion about Lucifer or about any story you see here, let us know. Send us your opinion at 360@thedenverchannel.com or message us on Facebook or Twitter. In just a couple of weeks, Colorado lawmakers will be back at work, and they need to find a way to fix our roads. In November, Colorado voters rejected plans to fund transportation needs. Well, Denver7's Jennifer Kovaleski goes 360 on the future of transportation funding in Colorado.
Everybody that I know is on board with that for sure.
Alexi Neal is still surprised. None of the transportation measures passed. She voted yes on Prop 110, the tax increase solution.
I would like our roads to be better, and I think we have a group responsibility to work on that.
She believes it's time we all pay our part to fix the state's growing traffic woes. And for those who weren't.
Everybody complains that traffic is getting worse, and it's like, well, you don't get to complain if you didn't vote for that.
Already paid enough in taxes and just don't want another tax increase.
Darlene Mendoza is our Colorado voter who wasn't willing to pay up. Her reason is simple.
I voted no because I just believe there's other ways besides tax increases to fund transportation.
A sentiment clearly felt by the majority of Colorado voters, since both measures, 109 and 110, failed, and by large margins. Mendoza also thinks they were too complicated for the average voter to understand.
The way they were worded, they're just not very clear.
Both of our voters agree the state's infrastructure needs an overhaul. What they don't agree on are the solutions. Which brings us to Amy Ford with CDOT.
Well, obviously, we have a $1.7 billion budget, vast majority of which, frankly, is spent on maintaining the roads that we do have.
Bottom line, she says CDOT doesn't have the cash it needs to fund all of the projects our state needs.
We look very carefully at how we spread that peanut butter.
But with Democrats taking over the majority in both Colorado's House and Senate, there could be light at the end of the tunnel, says Sam Mamet with the Colorado Municipal League.
The election's over, so now we govern. And govern means seeking a consensus and working towards the middle.
With the Supreme Court ruling to let states decide whether to legalize online sports gambling, Mamet thinks we could see transportation funding come from that revenue in the future.
We're going to see our state legislature enter into the fray on that. And the question won't be so much as to whether or not to have sports betting, but where will the revenue from sports betting go?
One thing is for certain, finding a solution to highway funding in Colorado is not going to be easy. When we return, we're talking about panhandlers. Now, they're all over Colorado. Should they be regulated or left alone? And later, we're going for a drink. But should a bartender get it for you, or should you pour your own? We're going 360 on Pour Your Own Bars in just a few minutes. We see panhandlers on street corners all over Colorado, but should they be left alone or restricted to certain areas? Denver7's Russell Haythorne goes 360.
Yeah, you've all seen them, men, women, young and old, begging for money, and this is where a lot of opinions intersect. On one corner, the ACLU is fighting for panhandler rights. Venture to a different corner, and many say the trash, the impression it leaves on tourists, is all bad for Colorado. Down the street, homeless advocates argue this is an ethical issue. Up the hill, a convicted felon says it's better than a life of crime. So our story begins early in the morning with someone who says he just needs help. 6 days a week, Leon Allen makes this walk, this daily hustle.
I've been doing this for like almost 10 years now.
It's his version of work.
It really helps out, yeah, it really does.
Panhandling on a street corner.
Oh, anything helps, you know, that's how the sign works, anything at all.
Just to make it day to day.
Thank you. If I didn't have this, I would starve pretty much.
It's not how this Navy vet ever pictured his future.
I never imagined this life.
He works the corner at 6th and Colorado.
And this side's better because you're facing the drivers themselves.
Panhandling is an issue that stirs up all kinds of emotions. Some don't like the begging, the trash, and the image it gives our city.
I don't usually give them money because I'm afraid they'll use it for drugs and alcohol.
Caitlin Boyd doesn't either.
Because I work hard for my money. They should do the same.
They don't want to see poor people.
Ben Hunting is with Homeless Out Loud.
It's as simple as that.
And he's frankly sick and tired of how we treat panhandlers.
Every time panhandling laws get brought before the federal courts strike these laws down.
It is something cities and towns in Colorado and across the country have struggled with. Just do a quick Google search and you find headline after headline, cities struggling to regulate it.
As long as these antiquated ordinances remained on the books, they could be used to harass people who were not doing anything wrong.
Mark Silverstein is with the ACLU Colorado. It recently sent letters to 31 cities and towns in Colorado demanding they lift their bans on panhandling.
That's expression that's protected by the First Amendment.
No different, the ACLU argues,
Thank you so much for your donation.
than the firefighter boot campaign every fall. But many city leaders say there must be a balance. They argue begging gives cities a black eye, and there should be places like tourist destinations and neighborhoods that are off limits.
What we'll have to do is find other ways to keep our community welcoming and open and safe.
Oh, God bless you, sir. I love you. Have a great day.
Greeley recently passed an ordinance, then changed it to a ban on aggressive panhandling.
Scored $3. There are aggressive ones that ruin it for everybody.
Fortunately, we still have a couple of ordinances that we can use.
Advocates for the poor and homeless say,
when our response to our failure for public service is to police it, we got a problem as a community.
Hunting says the vast majority of panhandlers have few options because of health, physical limitations, and the affordable housing crisis.
Why, when 60% of our homeless community is working, why can't they afford a place to live?
If worst comes to worst, I just wave at everybody.
For Leon,
they always wave back.
It's a means to an end.
There's like a soup and crackers.
For the record, he's not homeless. He has a home, a trailer, that costs him the majority of his Social Security check.
My rent's $650, my check is like $750. So I have $100 left over for food, water, lights, gas.
A convicted thief, he says this is a more honest way to earn a living.
I'm actually on the corner making the money myself. I feel better about myself because I'm doing it honestly for once.
So he comes here.
Thank you very much. Is that a foreign coin? What kind of coin was that one?
And begs for anything you can spare.
Okay, I have it.
Token for a car wash.
I love all kinds of weird stuff.
A car wash token.
It was the thought that counted.
Russell Haythorne.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Denver7.
Traveling during the holidays is stressful, and while we know some people need to travel with emotional support animals, we also know there are those who are gaming the system so they just don't have to leave their pets at home. Denver7's Jace Larson goes 360 on new rules meant to crack down on those taking advantage of the airlines.
We've all seen the photos. Dogs everywhere. The issue peaked with this peacock. Yeah, it's a full-grown peacock, and the woman whose shoulder it's sitting on said she couldn't possibly travel without her feathered friend. And then there's the emotional support squirrel. Is any of this legit? Tonight, we have 4 perspectives, from someone with mental illness, to the people who put up with it on airplanes, to a local landlord, and a disability advocate. First up, Shanna Duffy, who suffers from bipolar disorder and survived a sexual assault.
And I no longer felt safe in my own home.
That's when her doctor suggested she get Apollo.
Okay, I'll be blunt. There was one night I was thinking about killing myself. And the thought popped into my head, who's going to take care of Apollo? And that was enough for me to just stop thinking about it.
Apollo is everything to her, but she's had people give her the side eye once or twice.
I have no fear in telling people, hey, I was inpatient in a psych facility and a doctor told me to get a dog. So when you get your medical degree, we can have this conversation again.
Let's pause this 360 and explain the difference between an emotional support animal and a service dog. ADA service dogs are specifically trained like a seeing eye dog, and they get to go anywhere. The rules, though, are a lot squishier for emotional support animals. They help someone with mental distress and can be any animal. Owners get to travel and live with them for free, no pet deposit. That's supposed to be after a doctor or a therapist says they need one, but plenty of people just lie. And that's a problem for our next person, the vice president for the airline advocacy group Airlines for America.
What's really happening is we've got a lot of folks who, for one reason or other, they're trying to avoid the pet fee.
Airlines have seen a 50% increase in people bringing emotional support animals on board. She says it's time to tighten the leash and the regulations.
We're not allowed to say no unless that animal is so big that it creates some type of a safety issue, like you remember Dexter the peacock.
Back on the ground.
So this is a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom unit.
Teo Nikolai is a local landlord and a member of the Apartment Association of Metro Denver.
So when it comes to mental health, I am all for anything which will help someone overcome those problems.
His view, people should be in the doghouse for gaming the system.
It's very common for people to come and present what is in fact a pet as an emotional support animal. And I think it's a huge disservice to the people who actually need it.
Faking an emotional support dog is like parking in a handicap spot without the placard, he says. Why not have a registration system to track those who really need it?
What we certainly would like to see more of is more verification, more documentation.
Check this out. We logged online and got an emotional support certificate for my dog Rocky for about $100. I answered honestly a few questions about having trouble sleeping and feeling stressed, but let's be honest, I'm a healthy guy. I never had to talk to anyone on the phone. I never visited a medical health professional in person. Yet look at my emotional support dog certificate. But before you go making up your mind about all of this, let me pull in another point of view from disability advocate Emily Harvey.
We don't believe that the laws need to be stricter regarding service animals and emotional support animals.
The reason? She doesn't want life to be made tougher for those with disabilities. And she worries about some new airline policies. They require passengers to get a doctor and veterinarian's note 48 hours before flying with an emotional support animal.
Which seems fine until you meet someone who's blind and now they can't fly for 2 days because they have this restriction that they have to give the airline a certain amount of notice.
So what do you think? Will the regulations hurt people who are disabled? Should landlords get to charge for all pets? Has this gone too far in the air? Are we unfairly judging those with mental health challenges? In Denver, Jace Larson, Denver7.
When we come back, we're talking daylight saving time and beer, a combination you don't want to miss. First, it was self-checkouts at the grocery store, and then came the kiosks inside your favorite fast food restaurants. Well, now you can even pour your own beer at the pub. But is self-service beer a convenience or a job killer? Denver7's Eric Luford takes us 360 on Pour Your Own.
Beer. We know it's big business.
Cheers.
Take it from the professionals. The Brewers Association says the overall beer market last year was a whopping $111.4 billion. And like everything else these days, it's evolving. Self-serve beer stations are popping up everywhere, from big chains like Buffalo Wild Wings to your smaller establishments. Customers register, get a card, walk up to a self-serve bar, and pour.
Pour My Beer is a self-pour technology that's revolutionizing the hospitality industry.
Automation, robots, machines, whatever you want to call them, are increasingly becoming the new employee, so we're going 360 on this latest trend of pouring your own. Let's look at the different perspectives. First, the very developers pitching their creation. Then you've got your bartender afraid his job is on the line, the business using the technology, and the economist looking at the reality of it all. We'll start with the technology.
Say hello to your new bottom line.
The biggest sell, servicing a lot more people with a lot less staff. In simple terms, beer sales continue to go up while the cost of staffing goes down.
You have the staff savings, which we see about, depending on the concept, 20 to 30% staff savings.
The next perspective comes from a business using the technology. That's First Draft Tap Room and Kitchen in Denver's Rhino District. The company says it's not about getting rid of bartenders, instead hiring on beer ambassadors, as they call them, providing a whole new experience.
We're not looking to eradicate a bartender-like position. We're just looking to kind of make it a little bit more about conversation and the experience.
But tell that to Chance. He's an ex-bartender, now manager at the Rock Restaurant and Bar in Aurora. He says he made upwards of $85,000 a year bartending, and when it comes to self-serve beer,
it's going to become a lot bigger, and it's very scary to me because it is eliminating a lot of jobs
and eliminating a lot of income for families.
Laura Dunstan co-owns the Rock Restaurant and Bar and says money speaks volumes.
The minimum wage is really high. And when you have employees that are being tipped, plus they make that salary, your taxes go up, everything goes up.
Making self-serve beer a lot more appealing. So we leave it to The Economist for a different take on this. Alexandra Padilla, an associate professor at the Metropolitan State University of Denver, says when one door closes, another one opens.
We should not forget that those machines need to be built, program, design, repair, maintain, and those give jobs to other workers.
And as we circle back to the whole pour-your-own beer model, perhaps the old-fashioned bartender-customer relationship can never be completely destroyed.
And I think that's still going to be a huge niche for the bar and restaurant business to wait on people.
There's yet another perspective here from you, the customer. Catherine writes on Facebook, part of the fun of going out is indulging in luxury of having a server. Roberta thinks bartenders are still vital, emailing us saying bartenders and servers are the first line of defense to prevent drunk drivers.
In the middle of winter, we experience our shortest days of the year, and we're also on daylight saving time, something many states, including Colorado, are already working on legislation to end. And it's not just changing clocks and adjusting sleep patterns that people find irritating. Many people simply feel daylight saving time is outdated. Others, like Professor Ken Wright at CU Boulder, say even though falling back helps reduce our risk of heart attack, in fact by 5%, springing forward negates that benefit.
When we lose that hour of sleep in the spring, not only do we have a 5% increased risk of heart attacks, but there's an 8% increased risk of strokes and a 17% increased risk of dying at the wheel.
Currently, Arizona and Hawaii are the only states that don't recognize daylight saving time. And many of you have let us know where you stand on this topic, with the majority of you agreeing that daylight saving time needs to end. Meg writes, stop changing the clocks. Pick one and stick with it. Sheila says, more daylight in the evening would be great. Make the change. Everyone will adjust. Jennifer says, if you don't like it, move to Arizona. Thank you, Jen. Now, whether you have an opinion about daylight saving, about Blucifer, or anything we've covered in this half hour, we'd sure love to hear from you. We are listening to you, Colorado. If you have something you want to say to us, please email us, 360@thedenverchannel.com, or if you'd rather, send us a message on Facebook or Twitter. Well, thank you very, very much for joining us for this edition of Denver 7 Goes 360. You can watch stories like these all the time on Denver 7 News, as well as our channels on Roku, Fire Stick, even YouTube. We hope to see you there.